Okay, so imagine this. You're reading something important,
What?
right? Like it could be an article, a research paper, maybe an email even, but something feels, I don't know,
Yeah.
a little off. You just can't shake this feeling like it wasn't actually written by, well, a person.
Right.
And that's kind of the unsettling reality we're diving into today. How good are we as humans, at spotting text that was actually generated by AI?
It's a really good question, and it's one that researchers at the University of Maryland are trying to figure out.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so their research is really going deep into this whole world of AI detection, looking at how well people can actually tell the difference between something written by a human versus, something that was spit out by an AI.
And what's even more interesting, I think, is that they're trying to trick people, right? They're using things like paraphrasing tools
Yeah.
and even those so-called humanizers
Mm,
just to see if they can throw us off the scent.
absolutely. It really is becoming a bit of an arms race where, one side's trying to outsmart the other. But one of the things that I found fascinating from their research was this clear divide they found between what they call experts and non-experts in AI detection.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Break that down for me a little bit. Who are these so-called experts and what gives them this edge, in this AI detective game?
So you can think of these experts like the Sherlock Holmes of AI detection,
And I like that.
right? They're the ones who, day in and day out, are using AI tools,
Okay.
like ChatGPT, for example.
Right, right.
And they've become so familiar, I guess you could say, with the ins and outs of how AI writes that they're just naturally better at spotting it
Hmm.
compared to folks who don't use these tools all the time.
It's like they've developed a sixth sense for it or something.
Yeah.
Almost like, I don't know, like a sommelier who can sniff out a subtle note in a complex wine.
Precisely. That's exactly it. It's not like they have some magical power or anything.
Right.
It's just that they've spent so much time with this stuff that they've developed this really keen sense for recognizing patterns. And what's really amazing is how accurate these experts are.
Okay.
So the study found that if you just took the majority vote from a small group, like 5 of these experts, they were right almost every single time.
Right.
Like they could tell almost perfectly which articles were written by AI and which weren't.
Wow. Hold on. Are you saying they were actually better than some of the fancy AI detection software out there? That's kind of wild.
Yeah, it really is. And to me, it suggests that there's something about how our brains work,
Yeah. Yeah.
this human intuition and pattern recognition that even the most advanced AI systems just haven't quite cracked yet.
That's a really fascinating idea. But okay, back to the experts. How are they actually doing this?
Yeah.
What are the telltale signs that, tip them off that, hey, this is AI?
So the research actually points to some pretty specific giveaways, and it's
Mhm.
not just clunky grammar or obvious mistakes.
Mm.
One thing they found is what they call AI vocabulary.
AI vocabulary. What is that?
So it's kind of like this. There are certain words that, on their own, sound totally normal,
Right.
but AI systems just tend to use them way more often than a human would.
Hmm. Okay, can you give me an example? What kind of words are we talking about here?
Sure, think of words like crucial or testament or even tapestry. They're not like wrong words.
Right.
It's just that AI just throws them around a lot to the point where to a trained eye, they just kind of stick out.
So it's not necessarily that the AI is using bad grammar or anything. It's just that it has these weird favorite words.
Exactly. And it kind of makes sense, right?
Yeah.
If you think about how AI is trained, these models are fed massive amounts of text, right?
Yeah.
So it's possible they just pick up these biases towards certain words or phrases just based on the data they were trained on.
So it's like AI has developed its own, I don't know, linguistic quirks.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Interesting. What else did the researchers find? Anything else these experts were picking up on?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Another big one was sentence structure. So AI tends to be really formal and predictable in how it writes. It just doesn't have that natural variation that you see in human writing.
Okay.
Like we might use short, punchy sentences sometimes, and then, longer, more complex ones other times.
Right.
But AI tends to stick to this very rigid, formulaic structure, which makes the writing feel, I don't know, almost robotic.
I can see that. It's like AI is trying too hard to sound super smart, which ironically just makes it sound less human.
You got it.
Okay, so we've got this AI vocabulary and these overly formal sentences. Those are the big red flags for the experts.
Yeah, those are two of the main ones. But the researchers actually uncovered something even more interesting. They found that AI really struggles with the higher level aspects of writing, like originality,
Mm.
factuality even, and even tone.
Okay, hold on. Let's break those down one by one. What do you mean when you say AI has trouble with the originality? Like, is it plagiarizing?
Not necessarily, no, but it often lacks that, I don't know, that spark of genuine human insight.
Okay.
It's really good at like rehashing existing information, and it can string together sentences in a way that makes sense, but it's not great at coming up with truly new ideas or perspectives.
So it's like it can mimic existing content, but it doesn't have that same, like, authentic human touch.
Exactly.
Interesting. Okay, what about the factuality part? Is the AI just making stuff up?
Well, can happen. Remember, these AI models are trained on mountains of data,
Mm-hmm.
but that data isn't always accurate or unbiased.
Yeah.
So even though AI might present information with, like, total confidence, you always have to be careful and double-check the facts, especially if something seems too good to be true, or maybe it just doesn't quite line up with what you already know.
So it's kind of like with anything else online. You can't just blindly trust everything you read, even if it sounds super convincing. Okay, what about tone? How does AI struggle with that?
So AI sometimes comes across as overly positive or just lacking in nuance. It's like it's trying too hard to avoid saying anything negative or controversial. And it doesn't always pick up on, like, the subtleties of humor, sarcasm, or other emotions that we humans just express naturally.
It's almost like the AI has this very, like, everything is awesome view of the world,
Yeah, right.
which is, we all know, not how the world actually works.
Exactly. And those complexities, those variations in tone and perspective, those are often the telltale signs that what you're reading was written by a human being.
Okay, so just to recap, we've got the overused AI vocabulary,
Right?
the too formal sentence structure, and then these difficulties with originality, factuality, and tone.
Mhm.
All potential clues that we're dealing with AI.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, but what about those people who are actively trying to, like, disguise AI-generated text?
Right.
You mentioned paraphrasing tools and humanizers earlier.
Yeah, those are definitely things people use to try and make the AI writing harder to spot.
So how do those fit into this whole detection game?
Well, that's where the arms race really heats up.
Okay.
So people who want to pass off AI writing as their own often turn to paraphrasing tools,
Right.
just to kind of scramble the wording and make it sound
Right.
less robotic. But the study found that this isn't always as effective as people think, especially when you've got these expert human detectors on the case.
I'm curious, why is that? Don't these paraphrasing tools fundamentally change the text?
Well, yeah, they do change the words,
Yeah.
but they don't necessarily change that underlying structure or get rid of that AI vocabulary we talked about. It's kind of like rearranging the furniture in a room. It might look different at first glance,
Right.
but the room itself is still the same.
It's like putting lipstick on a pig.
Exactly.
It might look a little different, but it's still a pig.
That's a good way to put it.
Okay, what about the humanizers? Are those any better at, like, hiding the AI fingerprints?
Well, humanizing AI text is definitely trickier. It's about trying to add those missing elements, like the originality, the nuance, that emotional depth that AI often struggles with.
Mm-hmm.
And get this, the researchers actually created their own humanizing tool based on what they learned from the expert annotators.
Whoa, hold on. So they were basically trying to program the AI to write in a way that could fool even the most discerning human?
Exactly. Yeah.
Did it work? Did they create the ultimate AI disguise?
Not quite. Even their best humanizing efforts weren't foolproof.
Really?
Yeah, the experts could still often tell the difference, especially when they really scrutinize the text. It seems like replicating the full range of human expression is just a much harder problem to solve than just, mimicking sentence structure or word choice.
It's a constant back and forth, isn't it? Like, humans are trying to outsmart AI, and then AI is trying to outsmart humans right back. It's like something out of a sci-fi movie.
It really is. And this whole arms race is only going to get more intense as AI models get more and more sophisticated. But there's some good news here. The research is actually giving us some really valuable insights that can help us all become more discerning readers, even in a world where AI-generated content is everywhere.
This is getting really interesting.
We'll dive into those strategies a bit later.
Okay, I can't wait. We'll be right back after a quick break. We've been talking a lot about how experts can spot AI writing, but I'm curious, does this apply to, like, everything we read? Like, could I tell if an email or, I don't know, a tweet was written by AI?
Yeah, that's where it gets even more interesting. You see, the research we've been talking about, that was focused on news articles.
Right.
But those same basic principles, those giveaways, can actually apply to other types of writing too.
Okay.
But you're right, the context definitely matters.
Gotcha. So those same red flags, they might look a little different depending on whether we're reading a formal article or something more casual, like a social media post.
Exactly. Like take emails, for example. They're usually way less formal than a news article. So those signs we talked about, the fancy AI vocabulary,
Yeah.
or those stiff formal sentences, they might actually stand out even more in an email.
It'd be like if you got an email from a friend, but it was full of big words and really complex sentences.
Right.
It just wouldn't sound like them.
Exactly. It would just feel dot off. And that same logic applies to social media posts.
Okay.
Most social media posts are, short, snappy, they use slang and stuff.
Yeah.
So if AI is in there trying to over-explain or using super formal language, it's going to be pretty obvious.
So basically, if you see a post that's just way too wordy or doesn't have that natural flow, your AI sense should start tingling.
Exactly. And remember how we talked about AI struggling with originality?
Yeah.
Well, that's especially true for social media.
Yeah.
It's really hard for AI to come up with like a truly witty or insightful comment, especially when you only have a few words to work with.
That makes you wonder, right? Like, are there tons of AI bots out there right now trying to sway our opinions with these, like, fake social media posts?
It's definitely a possibility.
Yeah.
And it's a big reason why we all need to be more critical about what we read online.
It's kind of creepy when you think about it.
Yeah, it is. Now let's shift gears for a second and talk about creative writing.
Okay.
Things get even more complicated there.
Yeah.
AI has gotten surprisingly good at generating stuff like poems, short stories, even song lyrics.
Right.
But even with creative writing, you can still see those limitations we talked about earlier.
You mean there's limitations with originality and emotional depth?
Yeah, exactly. Like an AI could probably write a poem that's technically sound,
Right.
but it might not have that soul, that human touch that really makes it connect with you.
It's kind of like those AI-generated songs that have been popping up, right?
Yeah.
Some of them are catchy, but they just don't have that same depth or lyrical genius that makes a song truly memorable.
You got it. AI can do rhymes and structure, but it's missing those little nuances of human emotion, those turns of phrase that make a song really special. So sure, an AI might be able to pump out a generic pop song,
Right.
but it's probably not going to write the next Bohemian Rhapsody, you know?
That's good to hear. It seems like even with creative writing, there's still something unique about human creativity that AI just hasn't been able to crack yet.
Yeah, I think you're right. But of course, AI is constantly evolving, so who knows what the future holds.
That's true.
But by staying informed and keeping our critical thinking skills sharp, we can appreciate both the amazing potential of AI as well as its limitations.
Totally agree. But this whole conversation about detecting AI makes me think about something else. Like, what happens when WE are the ones using AI to write?
Yeah, good point.
It's one thing to be able to spot AI content, but it's a whole other ballgame when we're the ones creating it.
Right. It definitely raises some big ethical questions about authenticity. Like, think about students using AI to write essays, or marketers creating website copy with AI, even novelists using AI for plot ideas.
Oh, yeah.
Where's the line? When does using AI as a writing tool cross over into, like, misrepresentation or even deception?
That's a tough one. On one hand, if it's a tool that helps us be more efficient or maybe even a better writer, why not use it?
Mm-hmm.
But then there's that other part of me that's like, wait, are we losing something important here? That authentic human voice?
You've hit the nail on the head. It's this constant tension, isn't it?
Yeah.
On the one hand, AI writing tools can be super helpful. Like, think about it. They can help you if you're stuck. They can suggest different ways to say things.
Right.
They can even help you structure your thoughts better.
It's like having a super-powered brainstorming buddy.
Exactly. But the question remains, where do we draw the line? When does using AI go too far?
Yeah, when does it become cheating? Or even worse, pretending to be someone you're not?
Right, that's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
And the answer is, it depends. A lot depends on the context.
Okay.
Like in schools, for example, there are really strict rules against plagiarism. So using AI to write your whole essay would definitely be breaking those rules.
That makes sense. You're not really learning if you're just letting the AI do all the work.
Right. But what about those less obvious ways of using AI, like using it for a first draft or to fix grammar and stuff?
Yeah, that's where things get fuzzy, isn't it?
Yeah, it does. There's no easy answer.
Yeah.
Some teachers might be okay with it, as long as the students are still doing most of the work themselves, you know?
So it really comes down to honesty and what your intentions are.
Yeah.
If you're just using AI as a tool to learn and get better at writing, that's one thing. But if you're trying to pass off AI written stuff as your own work, that's a whole other story.
Exactly. And it's important to talk about these things openly,
Yeah,
so we can all be on the same page about what's okay and what's not.
right. We can't just ignore these issues, right?
Nope.
AI writing tools are here to stay,
Yeah.
so we need to figure out how to deal with them.
Absolutely. It all comes down to our values.
Okay.
Like, what do we really value about human writing? Is it originality, creativity, emotional depth,
Mm-hmm.
a connection between the writer and the reader?
Mm-hmm.
If those are the things that matter to us, then how do we use AI in a way that actually supports those values?
That's a really great way to put it. It's not about like hating on AI or trying to ban it. It's
Uh,
about figuring out how to use it responsibly in a way that aligns with what we believe in as
I
humans.
like that.
And that kind of brings us to a final thought for our listeners to chew on.
A good one.
As we move into this world where AI is everywhere, it's important to think about our role, not just as readers, but as creators too.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about the ethical side of AI writing?
Yeah.
How do we make sure that AI is being used to help humans express themselves better instead of just replacing us altogether?
That's the question we all need to be thinking about.
We'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Keep the conversation going. You know, it really does feel like we've just scratched the surface here. I mean, talking about how to SBOT AI writing, that's one thing. But when you start thinking about the ethics of actually using AI to write, that's a whole other can of worms.
Yeah, it really is kind of opens up a Pandora's box, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We have this incredibly powerful tool, but are we using it wisely? It makes you question what really matters when it comes to writing.
Yeah, and for me, it keeps coming back to this idea of authenticity. Like, if we're relying on AI to help us write, can we still say it's genuinely our whereas?
That's the core of it, isn't
Are
it?
we losing that human spark?
I don't think there's an easy answer. Part of it depends on how we're using these tools.
Right.
Are we letting AI do all the work?
Mm-hmm.
Or are we using it more like a starting point
Okay.
to get us unstuck maybe, or explore different ideas so we can still create something that's personal, you know?
It's like, imagine someone hiring a ghostwriter to write their whole book for them
Right.
versus, say, working with an editor who helps them shape their own writing.
That's a perfect analogy.
In one case, you're basically giving away your voice, your ideas.
Yeah,
But in the other, you're still in control, you know?
exactly. And that's why intent is so important here.
Okay.
Why are we using AI in the first place?
Yeah.
Are we trying to trick people? Or are we genuinely trying to improve our writing?
It's kind of like those photo filters that make everyone look like impossibly perfect.
Oh, yeah, I see what you mean.
Might get more likes or whatever,
Right.
but is that really you?
That's the same idea with AI writing.
Right.
What
Okay.
matters more,
Yeah.
creating something that's truly your own, even if it's not perfect, or producing something that's technically flawless but lacks that human element.
I think for me, I'd rather have something real, even if it's messy.
I agree.
Authenticity over perfection.
And that's why transparency is so crucial here. If you're using AI to help you write, just be upfront about it. Give credit where credit's due, whether it's to a human or to a machine.
Right.
Let's use AI in a way that boosts human creativity, not replaces it.
Totally. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one thing you hope people take away from all of this?
I'd say be curious about AI writing tools, but also be cautious.
Okay.
Don't be afraid to experiment and see how they can help you. But don't lose sight of what makes your writing uniquely yours. Think about the ethics, be honest about how you're using it, and never forget the power of your own voice.
That's great advice. It's a lot to think about, but it's a really important conversation to have, especially as AI becomes more and more integrated into our lives.
I think so too.
Well, thanks for joining us today. It's been a fascinating discussion. And to all our listeners out there, keep exploring, keep questioning, and most importantly, keep writing.